Get started then.
There we go. Get started.
That's right.
How is everybody?
Good.
Good to see you guys. Obviously, before we get started, just excited to, this is obviously our first week of OTAs. Had a really productive phase 1, phase 2, same thing. Tremendous attendance from our guys, which is very similar to what I experienced last year here. I think the weather has a lot to do with that. So, just getting the opportunity to get out there now and work on, some football stuff as opposed to conditioning, strength and conditioning, and the communication phase of it. And guys are really, starting to, create the bonds and the trust, at this time of the year that you're going to need eventually when we get into pads and start doing the banging around. So, good group, great group. Excited to continue our process here in phase 3 and looking forward to today.
Josh, I know that Jimmy G was coming off a foot injury. Has he been cleared to get on the field yet? And will he be?
There's a number of guys, you won't see him today. There's a number of guys that you're not going to see. Again, you'll see him. I mean, I'm not going to run down a list every time here, but, no, he's going through his process just like we knew he would. Nothing has happened that would surprise us based on, the information we had. Same thing with Tyree. Again, there's a number of guys you're not going to see out there today. So, rehabbing the things that they're rehabbing. And again, we know we don't play a game for over 100 days. So, they're doing everything they can do to get right. And when they're all ready to go, then eventually they'll be back on the field.
Is that something you think would be waited until training camp for Jimmy to get on the field?
Could be. I mean, I'd say with all these guys, it's about the same. Like I said, when they're ready. Some of them may be ready, before the spring is over. Some of them may not, and again, we're always going to err at this time of the year on being smart. We don't play a football game till, like I said, 3.5 months. So, to try to rush them out there, to get them out there in May, I mean, it's a poor decision. So, doing a great job. All these guys are doing a great job with what they can do in terms of the rehab. They're in all the meetings, all the football things that they can do that, aren't jeopardizing anybody's ability to be ready to go here for the season. They're doing all those things, and the guys that aren't out there, like I said, they'll just, as soon as they're ready, they'll be there.
Josh, when you look at Nate Hobbs and Trayvon Morig, they both had extremely productive rookie seasons.
Yep.
Last year did not comparatively. You obviously made no staff changes there, so you're happy with your staff. What do you need to get from them in these OTAs in training camp, so they're back to that rookie year production?
Yeah, well, I think Nate battled a bunch of injuries and all that, so that was part of it. But I think anytime a young player goes through a system philosophy change, certain types of things change for them, and so as much as a rookie, you want a rookie to kind of grow from 1 to 2. If there's a lot of things that change from their day to day and from what they were doing as rookies, sometimes that bump happens from 2 to 3. That's just reality. So both of those guys are doing a great job of. Now it's their second year. There's some there's some same as for those guys in terms of communication, verbiage, responsibilities, etc. And so I'm excited for both players. They have a great attitude. They know that they have an opportunity to really kind of take a step forward here and really impact the team.
With Garoppolo, when he got hurt initially last December, he avoided surgery and was pushing to maybe potentially return if the 49ers made a run in the playoffs, which they did. Obviously, he didn't end up coming back. Did he have any sort of off-season surgery or procedure to address his issues?
Yeah, I'm not. Again, I'd say the same thing. There's a number of guys, and I'm really, honestly, not going to talk about the specifics of those things. Again, those are private to those guys individually. But everything that's happened since we've signed Jimmy, we knew ahead of time. It's the same thing with Tyree. I would say it's the same thing with a number of guys that we're aware of. So certainly had an awareness of all of it. And again, our preference is to not to push and rush anybody back at this point in time. Could we? I mean, you could make that decision. It's just I think the most important time of the year is going to happen when we get to training camp, so that we're ready to go. We can do the work we need to do in August.
And a non-injury player to reference, Josh Jacobs, obviously he hasn't signed his.
Yep.
I believe he hasn't signed his tenure yet. Is there any hope that he could be out there for OTAs?
I mean, that's obviously up to JJ. You know, there's nothing really to report on that front. I stand by what I've said all along. Love the player and the person, and I'll be excited when I see him.
Coach, I know it's a small sample size, but what have you seen from Trey Tucker that kind of gets you excited?
Well, when we evaluated Trey coming out, first of all, Trey's a captain. He's a extremely bright guy, hard worker, impacted them in the kicking game and offensively, and again is a guy that can run, really run. And so, you know, you take a guy like that, and you know, there's a number of ways that he could factor. You know, played on the coverage teams at Cincinnati, and you know, there's a lot of things that he did that maybe didn't show up in the stat sheet, but productive on offense, productive in the return game, productive in the coverage units, adds an element of speed and toughness. So again, this is his third day, you know, out here in OTAs. So you know, still learning a lot, like all the rookies are, but excited about, you know, what Trey can do.
Another
Josh,
new
Devontae
face you
had
got
some-
receiver-wise is Jacoby Myers, and he really credited you for pushing him early in his career. What was his development like from your vantage point, and how nice is it to be reunited?
Yeah, he's an undrafted guy, you know, and I believe right now half of our roster is undrafted. So the 91 that we actually have on the roster, you know, I think 45 of them are undrafted. So, you know, there's a lot that goes into that. You know, first of all, it doesn't matter how you get somewhere. It just matters what you do once you're there. And I think Jacoby had a great attitude from the moment that I was able to work with him. You know, learned, was like a sponge in the classroom. Took as many reps as he could in the off season and training camp. Tried to learn from the players that were ahead of him. Really, you know, dove in and tried to improve every day. And a lot of those guys that make it, you know, as undrafted players, and we had some last year that made our football team and impacted us significantly through the course of the season. They all have the same mindset. You know, they compete. They don't care about status, draft position, etc. They come in and they earn their role on the football team, and that's what Jacoby did when he was a rookie. And he's just continued to do that, and you know, he continues to do it today. So excited to have him join our group. You know, he's gained some knowledge and depth of experience now over the first 4 years of his career that you know, you can just see how much he's grown.
Josh, Devontae Adams made some comments in the story about maybe not necessarily seeing eye to eye in certain things. Did you get a chance to talk to Devontae about that in terms of any kind of clarity? And is it more sort of a sign that, you know, he's got a little bit of a voice in what you guys are doing in terms of the dialogue, and it's not always going to be a case where people see completely eye to eye?
Yeah, Tay and I have a great relationship. I know he does with Dave as well, and he's here every day. And I didn't read the whole thing, so I don't really know exactly, you know, every nook and cranny of that. But I don't think there's much drama here in terms of, you know, my relationship, his relationship with us, the way he works, the way he goes about his business. Obviously, he had a great year last year, and just looking forward to year 2.
Josh, to get to this level, a player has to be driven. You just don't get to the NFL on chance. How hard is it for you, a former player, to maybe pull back on the reins on some guys and say, it's only OTAs, let yourself heal, because they want to be out there?
Yeah, I was a former Division III player.
But you still love the game.
Yes, no doubt. That's the only reason I was out there. So, you know, and look, everybody wants to do that, and we've had to tell players, I'd say year to year, hey, look, you know, same thing I just said. We don't play till September. You know what I mean? And guys want to get out there, and they're eager, which just means you have a great group of guys. You know what I mean? That are eager to work with their teammates, and eager to get out there and help us try to, you know, become whatever it is we're going to become in their unit. So, you know, if they're doing that, that's a good thing. You know what I mean? It's a lot harder to try to get them to run than it is when they want to run, and you got to try to pull the reins back a little bit. So I would never be upset about a player that wants to do that before they're quite ready to go. But we're going to try to make smart decisions just so we have the right guys out there when it's time in August.
We'll go Q Heidi Willie. What was yours and the coaching staff's reaction to the kickoff rule now being fair catch, especially with a guy like Daniel Carlson?
Yeah, look, the rules are the rules, and again, we have one vote out of 32, and so and sometimes we may see it differently a little bit too. That's just part of each organization in football, and so for me personally, whatever the rules are, we're going to adopt the best philosophy that we can to try to play within the rules, and if there's an advantage we can find to play within them, then we're going to try to do it. So obviously that's the rule we're going to adopt this year, and we're hard at work trying to figure it out. I don't know all the ins and outs right now yet in terms of seeing the different questions we had when it was proposed. If we're kicking off from the 50-yard line, is the rule still in play, or is there no fair catch then? You know what I mean? When there's a defensive penalty on a scoring play or something like that, and you choose to enforce the penalty on the kickoff, is the fair catch still applicable or not? You know what I mean? There's little things like that I'm not exactly sure how it's going to be finally written. But like I said, there's pros and cons to all of them. There really is. I can see it both ways. Number one, I'd say is I'm for whatever makes the game safer. So if the players, if that's a play where more injuries are occurring, more head injuries are occurring, more head impact is occurring, I have no right to stand up here and say, we need to be doing more of it if that's what we're trying to avoid, because obviously player safety and health comes first.
Coach, along those lines, I know that week 15 is quite a ways away, but with the Thursday night flex rule change as well, with the 28-day notice, how do you feel like that can impact the team in preparation?
Yeah, I think with the advance notice, I think it's okay. Again, we're going to play them whenever they tell us. They changed one of our games last year, as you guys all know, to a Saturday. So whatever the flex ruling is, if we end up being flexed, then then so be it, and we'll get ready to play the game. I think the 28 days is plenty of notice for you to kind of adjust what you're doing. As long as you know ahead of time that you're going to play on a short week, I think everybody's okay with that. And I'd say this: there's pros and cons to both. Playing on a short week sometimes is tough when you got some guys banged up, et cetera. And then we all know that there's kind of a mini advantage to be gained afterward. If you can, to have a little bit of extra rest time and recovery after the game before you play again. So pros and cons of both. Fortunately for us, our Thursday, at least the one that's scheduled, is late in the season anyway. So that's how we're going to go into the year planning, and if it changes, then we'll try to adjust.
Josh, I know you said you didn't read through the whole article that Ben was referencing to, but obviously someone's going to relay the message that's the exact quote that was said. Isn't it though, at this point in time, this early in the year, healthier to kind of get that out, to create dialogue? You want your star player to sort of, you're never going to see eye to eye. So in that event, it creates dialogue. It allows you guys to sit down and whatever it may be, get his opinion as well from a player's standpoint.
Yeah, Davante and I have talked. I mean, and again, I don't really, it's not really my concern that anybody necessarily adopts, every vision that Dave or I have for, the decisions that we have to make. Sometimes those are difficult. The thing I'd say about a player like Davante, and we have many other players in the same category, is they have an opinion and a voice because they've earned it. And I respect the hell out of anything that they would say or suggest or anything like that during the course of the process of trying to improve our team, which I know where Davante comes from. He's a competitor, he wants to win, and that's really his sole focus. And that's what he does here every day. He's here pushing himself, pushing his teammates. He's been a tremendous leader again this spring for our football team. And I have like I said, those things happen, I'd say, all the time, where somebody may have a question or a comment or a discussion is had, and those are the right things to do. And those players have earned it, and so I have nothing but respect for anybody like that has a comment or an opinion like that.
We'll go Levi, Adam, Paul.
Coach, obviously you've seen the rookies on the field in a small sample size of rookie minicamp, but outside of what you've seen on the field, what have you seen in terms of the mental aspect of their game and stuff that you see in the
Talk
classroom?
about the rookies.
Of course.
Yeah, it's, you know, and we tried to do this, you know, and you're looking for, we sit up here and talk about trying to build a tough, smart football team that's mature and explosive, and it's, if you're gonna try to build a football team like that, then you better identify those qualities in people and see if you can't acquire them. And so I think Dave and Champ and the entire Brandon, the entire scouting department, our coaching staff did a great job of trying to really vet and research all these kids that we had an opportunity to select. And you know, I think, you know, the early return on that is really positive in terms of the way they're approaching their day-to-day. They have a great attitude. They're working together on trying to, you know, gain on the stuff that they don't know that the veterans already do. And they're taking full advantage of their opportunities. And so I'm really excited about the intangibles and the leadership, the intelligence, the maturity, along with the skill that we're able to bring in, and excited to see where it goes.
Josh, I know when you talked about the kickoff rule, you talked about everybody's for player safety and
Yep.
There's more injuries on the kickoffs. Have you seen data from the league? We've heard the league say that repeatedly, but I don't know that anybody's actually seen data on that.
I mean, well, yeah, there is, and what I would say is I've seen the plays, you know what I mean, and not every kickoff in the entire league all year, but I've seen enough of them as we go through one season to the next to see that, you know, there's definitely, obviously you have a high rate of speed when you're running down there, and there's definitely some collisions that take place that are, you know, that I know we've tried to get out of the game. And so, again, sometimes there's gonna be some unintended consequences, you know? And so what does this mean for the kickoff and the strategy that people will employ? Will more people try to put the ball on the ground, you know, force returns that way? I don't know. We're gonna find out, you know. So like I said, I think there's a lot to dig into here, and see how each team wants to use it. Bottom line for us is if we kick the ball, we gotta be ready to cover it. You know what I mean? Because there's no guarantee that they're gonna put their hand in the air. So if they don't signal for a fair catch, then we're playing, you know, football as football has been played. And so, you know, each team will have an individual decision and a choice to make on that. And like I said, until we see the whole entirety of the rule and you know what those ramifications are going to mean to us, it's hard to necessarily sit here and say exactly how we're going to use it yet.
Josh, you're going to have a familiar face sitting up in the owner's box, it looks like, pretty soon, with Tom Brady buying in, or at least going to purchase part of it with Mark. How strange, how cool, how interesting is that for you to look up there and see Tom Brady as an owner?
I mean, look, I think everybody knows how I feel about Tom, the person, you know, so if that comes to fruition, obviously I'll be incredibly excited about just, you know, him being somebody that's in Raider Nation and has a vested interest in us doing as well as we can do and trying to bring a championship football team here to Vegas. And so, again, I don't know exactly where all that stands. I think that's a question that's way above my pay grade in terms of that stuff. But obviously had a great history with the player and an even better one with the person. So that would obviously be a tremendous honor to partner up with him again.
So you admitted it was a fumble. You think you got to admit it too to be able to line?
100%. 100%. No question.
You guys all